Duerme, mi niña, close your eyes. The dream you see is no disguise. A memory lost, a faded name, a whisper echo the flame.
All right. I want to discuss what October 12th means to me. What it is to me and why it impacts me mentally to the point that I dissociate maybe for a week or two before the date arrives. The date of October 12th, 2013 is a very significant date. It's the date that marks the death of my firstborn son. I was about 12 to 15 weeks pregnant, and I was hiding it from my family due to the situation that I was in. It was a very abusive, emotional, physical, mental relationship between my ex-stepmother at the time and my biological father. We are not going to dive into that, but I figured I would give some context as to what will happen. This audio will need a trigger warning. So, trigger warning for loss of child, mental abuse, physical abuse, trauma in general. I remember this day like it was yesterday. It was a difficult day. I had to be the one to take care of the dogs and the house in general due to how my stepmother was. I remember feeding my pup that I had at the time. He was a boxer, and he was maybe 2-3 years old, maybe around this time, and he liked hanging out around me because he figured it out. He figured out that there was a baby on the way, and he would never leave my side. My ex-stepmother at the time did figure it out as well, and she told me to put the dog inside the cage while we had a little discussion. This discussion turned out to be her screaming at me and yelling at me that I don't deserve to have children, that I would be a horrible mother, and so on and so forward. I sensed the threat that was underlying her words, and I ran up the stairs to try and get to my phone to call my partner and now husband. I didn't make it. She had made me trip, and the angle that I fell, my stomach collided with the stairs, and then she told me that the child did not deserve to be born because I was nothing. She then proceeded to leave to go for her afternoon workout because she wanted to be in shape or some shit. I proceeded to feel pain, and I tried to ignore the pain, thinking maybe it's just a baby growing, maybe I'll be okay, maybe he'll be okay. That's unfortunately not what happened. What proceeded to happen after was a lot of pain and blood, and I went into the shower where I thought that it would minimize the pain. Unfortunately for me, it did not. To this day, I cannot see the color red pulling on a white surface. whether it's paint or fake blood. I can't handle seeing the color because it's triggering. I lost my son that day. I held him in my hands. He was very small and still moving in that little amniotic sac, and he stopped. He was no longer. I remember wrapping myself in a towel. I remember wrapping him in a small book sleeve that I used to use to cover my books when I was in high school. And it was blue. It felt fitting. It was a very soft, silky texture. And I wrapped him in it after I got dressed, after I put on so many pads to try and stop the blood that was pooling between my legs. I gathered all the strength that I had and all the courage that I had, and I buried him by the tree next to the fence in my backyard. I cried as I did. I didn't use a shovel. I used my very own hands to claw at the dirt and bury him. I hid the grave underneath some rosebush thorns that we had hid back there. I heard my dad's car coming, and I ran inside and proceeded to pretend it like everything was normal. I had to hide everything. The evidence, I had to hide my emotions, I had to hide the pain that I was in for weeks. That was all suppressed until I gave birth to my daughter in 2015. So for over a whole year, I didn't realize my mind was blocking that out. I have been in therapy since 2017, and I have been grieving the loss of my son for over 12 years now. He would have been 12 years old this year. I have a makeshift urn on my office shelf right now with his name on it and the date that I lost him and the date that he would have been born. On October 12th of 2025, I made the announcement on Sunday that I was not going to stream Skyrim due to me dissociating for an entire week where I just couldn't be myself, and I wasn't going to try and force a smile when I couldn't, when I was still in the middle of grieving, crying, suffering the loss of a son that I will never hear or see. On October 14th of 2025, Jewel decided to make fun of the fact that I was having a mental crisis. I found it to be rude, hurtful, and disrespectful. She will never know what it's like to have a child, to lose a child, to grieve for that child. My son's name is Matthias. That is the name I chose for him. And he will live on in the afterlife. And I know that I'll meet him there. But I felt like I needed this story to be heard. That this is not something to be brushed off by someone who doesn't understand what grief is, what mental stasis or dissociating is. I know what I suffered that day, and I know just how much it still triggers me. And I know just how much I still have to go in the grieving process, because grief is not linear. You don't get to grieve for like a day and then you're over it. You don't get to grieve for a year and you're over it. This has been a 12 long mission into figuring out how I can go on without feeling like I'm dying on the inside. So, while you all may think that she's telling the truth and thinking that she's just a poor little girl who needs guidance, let me show you that she knows exactly what she's doing in every shape, way, and form.